She thought the badge made her invincible. She thought that because she sat at the head of the HOA board table, the laws of the state didn't apply to her. She thought she could terrorize a 16-year-old girl just for existing. But as she sat in her sedan, engine idling, screaming at my terrified daughter through the window, she didn't notice the shadows moving behind her. She didn't notice that she had been baited. And she certainly didn't expect that within 3 minutes, her little power trip would end with 3 squad cars boxing her in and an officer's hand hovering over his holster. Before I tell you how it all started, if you love seeing neighborhood tyrants get what's coming, hit that subscribe button and stay till the end. This one unravels beautifully. But to understand how we got to that moment, the moment the neighborhood tyrant finally broke, we have to go back 6 months. We moved into the Oakwood Estates because it was quiet. It was the kind of place where the lawns were manicured within an inch of their lives and the trash cans were never left out past 6 p.m. We knew there was a homeowners association. We signed the bylaws. We were prepared for the occasional letter about a weed in the driveway or a mailbox that needed painting. What we weren't prepared for was Patricia. Patricia wasn't just the HOA president. She was the gatekeeper of morality for 3 blocks. She was a woman who had too much time, too much bitter energy, and a desperate need for control. At first, it was standard stuff. I got a fine because my truck was parked 2 inches over the sidewalk line. I paid it. Then, we got a warning because our holiday lights went up 2 days before the approved window. I took them down. I played the game because I didn't want drama. I just wanted to raise my family in peace. The dynamic shifted the day my daughter, Maya, turned 16 and got her provisional driver's license. We bought her a used Honda Civic. Nothing flashy, just safe transportation for school and her part-time job at the library. Maya is a good kid. Straight A's, shy, anxious. She's the type of kid who apologizes when someone else bumps into her. The first incident happened a week after she started driving solo. Maya came home, dropped her keys on the counter, and I could see her hands shaking. She was pale. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling. "I think someone followed me." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? Like a stranger?" "No," she whispered. "It was Mrs. Gable from down the street. The HOA lady." Maya explained that as she entered the community gate, Patricia's silver SUV pulled out directly behind her. Patricia rode her bumper the entire half-mile to our house. When Maya signaled to turn into our driveway, Patricia pulled up alongside her, rolled down the window, and held up a phone, filming her. She didn't say a word. She just filmed Maya getting out of the car, then sped off. I was furious. I marched down the street to Patricia's house and knocked on the door. When she answered, she had that smug, tight-lipped smile plastered on her face. "Can I help you, Mr. Henderson?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Why were you following my daughter?" I demanded. "She's 16. You scared her half to death." Patricia let out a sharp laugh. "Following? Hardly. I was patrolling. It's my duty to ensure the safety of this community. Your daughter was doing 27 in a 25 zone. I have it on video. Expect a fine." "She's a new driver," I said, stepping closer. "You don't tailgate a new driver. And you don't film a minor. If you have an issue, you come to me. I go where the violations are," she snapped, slamming the door in my face. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I had made my point. I was wrong. That confrontation didn't stop her. It painted a target on Maya's back. Over the next 2 weeks, the harassment escalated from petty to predatory. Every time Maya left for school, Patricia was there, watching from her porch with binoculars. Every time Maya came home from her shift at the library, Patricia's SUV would seemingly materialize out of nowhere, tailing her, high beams blinding her in the rearview mirror. The fines started piling up in the mailbox. Unsafe operation of a vehicle. Noise violation, car radio. Suspicious behavior. Maya stopped wanting to drive. She started asking me to pick her up. She was being held hostage in her own neighborhood by a woman weaponizing a clipboard. But the breaking point wasn't a fine. It was a Tuesday night. Maya called me from the entrance of the neighborhood, sobbing. "Dad, she's blocking me. She won't let me in." I grabbed my keys and ran out the door. I wasn't going to play by HOA rules anymore. I wasn't going to write a letter to the board. I realized right then that Patricia wasn't interested in compliance. She was hunting, and she had just made the mistake of hunting the wrong family. I needed to stop reacting and start calculating. It was time to go on the offensive. When I pulled up to the community gate that Tuesday night, Patricia's SUV was idling perpendicular to the entrance, physically blocking the keypad. As soon as my headlights hit her windshield, she didn't panic. She didn't speed off in shame. She slowly, casually put her vehicle in drive and rolled away, giving a lazy wave out the window, as if she were just a friendly neighbor saying hello. Maya was in the passenger seat of her car, doors locked, crying quietly. That wave was the catalyst. It was a declaration that she believed she was untouchable. She thought this was a game of he said, she said, and she knew the board would always side with the president over the new residents. But I wasn't going to the board. I was going to war. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I didn't spend the day relaxing. I spent it turning Maya's 2014 Honda Civic into a mobile evidence-gathering unit. I went to a specialty electronics store and bought top-of-the-line 4K dash cams, front, rear, and interior cabin-facing. These weren't the cheap ones you buy at a gas station. These recorded audio, had night vision, and uploaded directly to the cloud. I also installed a GPS logger that tracked speed and location to the inch, just to refute any future claims of speeding. By noon, I was sitting in the office of an old college friend, David, who happens to be a pit bull of a civil rights attorney. I laid out the stack of fines, the logs of dates and times, and the video Maya had taken on her phone. David pushed the papers around his desk, frowning. The fines are harassment, sure. We can sue the HOA for that. But the following? The blocking? That's not HOA business, John. That's menacing. In this state, following a minor with the intent to harass or intimidate is a criminal offense. But you need it to happen off-property to really nail her. If she does it inside the gates, she claims she's patrolling private roads. We need her on a public street. That was the key. We needed to lure the predator out of her cave. We devised a plan that was simple but dangerous. We knew Patricia's routine. She sat at the front of the neighborhood between 3:30 and 4:30 p.m., waiting for the school bus and the high school drivers. She thrived on the power of that hour. I called the local police precinct's non-emergency line. I didn't just complain. I asked for a specific officer I knew from community softball, Sergeant Miller. I explained the situation, the escalation, the blocking of the gate, the fear my daughter was living in. I told him we were worried she was going to cause an accident. Miller listened. He knew Patricia. Everyone in town knew Patricia. She had called the cops on neighborhood barbecues more times than he could count. If you can get me proof of reckless driving or harassment in progress, Miller said, we can intervene. But I can't park a cruiser there all day waiting for her to snap. You won't have to wait all day, I told him. Be on alert this Thursday at 4 p.m. Thursday came. The air was thick with humidity and tension. I sat in my truck, parked on a side street 3 blocks away from our neighborhood entrance. Public property, totally legal. I had an open line on my phone to Maya. Okay, honey, I said, watching the GPS dot on my phone screen moving closer. Just like we practiced. You drive the speed limit exactly. Full stops at every sign. I'm scared, Dad. Maya's voice crackled over the speaker. I know, but I'm right here. And Sergeant Miller is 2 streets over. Just drive. Maya turned onto the main boulevard leading to Oakwood Estates. As she approached the entrance, she signaled to turn in. Right on cue, Patricia's silver SUV pulled out from the landscaping shadow. But Maya didn't turn in. Instead, she canceled her turn signal and continued past the gate, driving down the public road away from the neighborhood. This was the test. If Patricia was just patrolling the HOA, she would stop at the gate. She had no jurisdiction outside those walls. I held my breath. On my phone screen, I saw the GPS tracker. Maya continued straight. And then, the second dot appeared. Patricia didn't stop. She peeled out of the exit, tires screeching, desperate not to lose her quarry. She was following Maya onto the public highway. She's behind me, Maya said, her voice spiking in pitch. She's really close, Dad. She's honking. Keep driving, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. Lead her to the trap. Patricia had taken the bait. She had left her kingdom. And now, she was just a civilian committing a crime on a public road, with 3 high-definition cameras recording every aggressive inch of it. Maya's Civic moved down the main boulevard like a nervous heartbeat, steady, cautious, but every pulse filled with dread. The dashboard camera caught everything. Patricia's SUV inches from her rear bumper, headlights flashing, horn blaring. She dropped the HOA President Act. This was pure aggression, unmasked and feral. She's still behind me. Maya cried through the speaker. She's yelling something out her window. Just stay calm, I said, trying to keep my voice level, though my hands were trembling. You're almost there. I could see both GPS dots converging on the intersection where Sergeant Miller was staged in an unmarked vehicle. Patricia was right where we needed her to be. A public lane, cameras rolling, and her behavior indistinguishably reckless. Maya stopped at the red light, signal on. Patricia rolled up beside her in the turning lane, window down, shouting, "You don't belong here." Patricia's voice hissed through the dashcam's audio. "You and your father have no respect for the rules." The arrogance was astounding. It was as if she thought the entire world still bowed to the HOA charter. The light turned green, and Maya accelerated gently. That's when Patricia made her final mistake. She lurched her SUV halfway into Maya's lane, cutting her off, tires squealing. Blue lights exploded behind them. Patricia froze, her SUV locking up in a panic stop. 3 patrol cars boxed her in, 1 in front, 2 behind. The dashcam caught the symmetry perfectly, just as choreographed in flashing red and blue. Maya coasted to the side, breathing raggedly. I was already on my way. My truck's tires practically lifted off the pavement with every turn. By the time I arrived at the intersection, the scene was a portrait of poetic justice. Patricia stood on the curb, hands outstretched, voice shrill and incoherent. "I am the HOA president," she kept shouting. "He called the police because his daughter broke the speed limit. You can't arrest me for doing my job." Sergeant Miller didn't even look fazed. "Ma'am," he said, "you followed a minor, aggressively tailgated her, then tried to block her lane. That's reckless endangerment." "I have the authority to patrol the neighborhood," she barked, red-faced. He held up a dashcam playback on his phone. "This road isn't in your neighborhood." There was a pause, a deep, cutting silence where Patricia's brain seemed to stutter in disbelief. The control she built her world upon had just collapsed. When the cuffs clicked around her wrists, she jerked in protest, trying to appeal to anyone who would listen. But every resident slowing at the intersection saw the queen of fines and violations getting read her Miranda rights under the strobe of squad lights. Maya watched from her car, speechless. I crouched beside her window. "You okay, sweetheart?" She nodded weakly, tears cutting down her cheeks. "I'm okay. I can't believe it actually happened." "Oh, it happened," I said. "And it's all on video." The aftermath was swift and surgical. David, my lawyer friend, moved faster than a gossip chain in a small town. Within 48 hours, we filed harassment and defamation claims, plus a restraining order. Patricia was charged with reckless endangerment and stalking a minor, charges that made the local news faster than HOA gossip could. At the next HOA meeting, which, by law, she could no longer preside over, the board looked hollow. They'd all watched the footage. They knew they'd backed a tyrant. The other homeowners, the ones who'd lived in quiet fear of unjust fines, finally spoke. One neighbor confessed Patricia used to drive by his house at night to check for trash bins past curfew. When I took the floor, I didn't raise my voice. I simply placed a printed still shot from the dashcam on the table. Patricia's SUV, inches from my terrified daughter's bumper, face twisted in rage. "This," I said, finger tapping the photo, "is what happens when power goes unchecked in our neighborhoods." HOAs were meant to preserve property values, not destroy people's lives. The room was silent. Even the board attorney looked like he wanted to disappear. They voted unanimously to remove her that night. 18 months later, the neighborhood feels different. People wave again. Kids play soccer in their front yards without being photographed for lawn violations. Maya just got accepted to college barely 10 minutes away, confident, unafraid, and driving that same Civic, now carrying faint scars and a heroic backstory. As for Patricia, the charges didn't put her in prison, but they ended her reign. She sold her house quietly and moved out of state. In some poetic sense, justice didn't need to destroy her. It simply mirrored her own methods back at her, one camera at a time. When I glance at the HOA notice board these days, I see new slogans. Community over control. Safety over power. And sometimes, when I drive past that very intersection, the one with the ghost of those red and blue flashes, I roll my window down and laugh softly to myself. Because Karen didn't expect 3 patrol cars to pull up behind her, and she sure didn't expect them to stay parked right there, long enough for the whole neighborhood to see the moment she finally met a rule she couldn't enforce her way out of.